Was it my intuition or was it fear? The truth about healing, emotional regulation, and the feminine awakening. Cheers, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Spill the Yoni Tea, where we spill the raw truth, serve the wisdom, and have the conversation nobody prepared Gen X woman for. Or let's face it, just midlife women. I am your host, Angielena, trauma-informed spiritual practitioner, feminine embodiment coach, professional pattern spotter, recovering people pleaser, and a woman who has spent her better part of her life learning that healing isn't about becoming fucking perfect, baby boo. Hell no. It is about becoming conscious. It is becoming self-aware and learning to love you the way they couldn't. So honey, grab your tea, your coffee, your fucking kombucha, emotional support water bottle, or whatever is helping you survive adulting today. I just gotta take a sip while it's hot because we are about to get real. Today's episode came from a question that I ask myself all the time when I get into a relationship. And if you're healing any kind of attachment wounds, navigating dating, relationships from heartbreak, or you're just going through a spiritual awakening, this question may change your life too. The question is, did I end the relationship because my intuition was warning me or because my fear was driving the car? Oh, honey, that's a good one. And I have been dabbling in the last 2 years of being single, really hitting and confronting and breaking down and healing my own patterns and wounds when it comes to my avoidant tendencies, honey. Because I've always been a strong independent. And if you're an independent woman, honey, this episode is for you. Can we just sit with that for a second? Because the question cracked open a whole new level of self-awareness for me. And here's what I truly realized. Healing isn't about seeing other people's patterns. It is about seeing your own. That is the true work. That's where the real work begins, because spotting red flags in others is so easy. But spotting our own conscious reactions, honey, that's a whole different story. It's like spiritual Olympic sports. It truly is. And that's what we are talking about today. The difference between intuition, understanding your intuition, and your fear, emotional regulation, spiritual awakening, attachment wounds, hyper independency, and how becoming self-aware changes anything. So let's spill some yoni tea, honey, shall we? And hey, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. For years, I have lived in survival mode. I've been a hyper strong, independent woman. And even in my 18-year long marriage, I still was very hyper independent. I kept pushing myself. I was always in survival mode. And I've always known since at a young age, I've been able to disassociate my emotions and shut them off at will when I want to. And then I'm always that girl that's in the bathroom crying, overthinking everything, sleepless nights, in my head, crying myself to sleep where nobody can see me. So, honey, I know what it's like to start building an avoidant attachment style, self-sabotaging things and not really realizing that because you are heavy in protective mode. So the moment something felt unsafe or uncertain, uncomfortable, or emotionally risky, I was fucking gone. I was so checked out. Not because I didn't care, not because I was cold, because somewhere deep inside of my own nervous system, leaving felt safer than staying. And honey, if somebody is disrespecting you and you're in an abusive relationship, no matter if it's career or with your lover, you don't want to stay. But many of us learned this, especially as a Gen X woman. We were taught to be strong, independent, self-sufficient, need nobody, depend on nobody, handle everything. Don't cry, baby girl. Don't complain and don't be dramatic. And while the world applauded our strength, nobody noticed how fucking exhausted we were becoming or had become. Nobody noticed beneath the strength was often a hidden fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of betrayal, fear of vulnerability, fear of needing somebody. Fear ruled us underlining subconsciously. Many of us became so super independent because depending on people did us wrong, baby boo, plain and simple. And survival eventually became our identity. But here's what I discovered. That survival, it is a trauma response. When you're in survival mode, you can't really have peace because you have this underlying anxiety that you just can't explain. So, honey, I'm going to break it down for you in this episode. Survival and healing are not the same thing, honey. Survival protects us, and transformation requires awareness, self-awareness, not perfection, just awareness of our own selves. Now, recently, I have gone through a few situations now where if I'm in relationship, career, work, whatever it is, I went through that whole fucking bullshit phase of going through the soft girl era. Because ever since I was young and in my 20s, before I met my ex-husband, I had strict boundaries and extremely high standards that to the point where they didn't breathe or look at me the way that I wanted them to. They didn't dress the way that I liked. Their behaviors and tones, I gave people a 3-month trial. Just like at work, they had a 3-month probation. And the moment I smelled bullshit, I was out like fucking a light bulb. Didn't say anything, just silently, we're done, it. And that I know was 100% in survival mode. So obviously, when I found love and I gave my heart to my ex-husband and then found out about his closeted life of infidelity, it shook my fucking world. It shook me. And I didn't date for a couple of years after we separated. We lived together for a year when we were separated. I didn't care what he did because at this time I was done. And then I stayed single for a year after that. And I had a lot of time to reflect on myself. And then I got into the dating scene, and I was lucky enough and blessed enough to have met a man who broke through my 3-month probation. And he was a beautiful soul. We didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And obviously there was things from my faults and his that we just didn't align anymore. And shortly after I ended a 2-year relationship, my mother passed away, and she had been my foundation, my rock, my go-to, always checking me in because I was hyper independent, and I'm a Taurus Aries on the cusp. So I've got that stubborn, grounded fire to boot. So my mom was always the one checking me into place because she knew me best. So when she died, I completely shattered. And I was looking to fill the void. I did mourn her, did go through the processes. But I started listening to other people and tried to really get really into my heart space and to really get out of that survival mode that I had been trapped in years of extremely high standards where nobody was getting the fuck in. And I took a chance on somebody. Everything seemed really good. And then he started mirroring a lot of patterns and behaviors that I did. It was an interesting process because I needed to have that tower moment to really see, because I have never been in that soft girl era. Like, I never welcomed anybody so openly. And I didn't want to be so harsh and rigid anymore. It was a game changer because it really helped me identify my fear and become so self-aware of what my intuition is telling me. I usually listen to my intuition, but I was mistaking it because now I'm on this healing journey and trying to soften up. And when you've been a woman who has, and you don't have to be a boss ass bitch, baby, to be a strong, independent woman who, any woman who has been through any kind of abuse or disappointment has her heart heavily guarded behind walls. And even in my marriage, I had these huge walls that I was unwilling to compromise and bend. And these walls have always kept me trapped from being fully expressed in my feminine energy and being free and trusting myself and loving myself enough to know that I am safe in whatever it is that I do. So, unmounting and taking apart my armor when I was vulnerable, I was a little confused, but I needed to go through that to really understand what I am delivering to you today. Because anytime that I smelt shit, I heard a lie, because I am an observer. I observe every word somebody says, every action. And yeah, I can be fun loving, and you don't even have a fucking clue what I'm doing in my head. But that's exactly what I'm doing. I always was watching for patterns. But a lot of times I watched them out of fear. And I didn't give a shit what anybody else thought because I was so busy protecting me. And honey, it threw me for a loop. One time I miscalculated and I screwed myself over. So I am here to help deliver you to kind of a new awareness, a new understanding. So when you are in a relationship with somebody and you've created any kind of form of intimacy, because you can't really say you're in a relationship with somebody if you're at the talking stages and you're dating. But honestly, once you physically or spiritually become entwined, whether that is from a deep, intimate kiss, whether that is from a sexual experience, any of those forms, you are creating a bond. And that's energy, baby boo. So once that bond is created and you feel that change in energy from somebody else, or their affections change, you see the inconsistency of pattern. It is natural for us to feel that we were used. And then we internalize that because we all, ladies, we all spiral with those thoughts. So I'm here to help you break it down. What happens is your trust begins to wobble, and immediately your nervous system is on high alert. Y'all know that feeling. Your brain suddenly becomes like the fucking FBI, the CIA, the RCMP, the local neighborhood watch. Ladies, let's face it, that is how we are designed. Don't try to be the cool chick that pretends you ain't like that, because we all know we are all like that. And somehow a delayed text comes in. And somehow that delayed text becomes a full Netflix documentary that you are spilling to your girlfriends. You got the evidence, and you're like that FBI agent trying to figure out the clue. You are stringing and connecting all those photos on your wall. Your theories, and you got 5 or 6 backup theories in the back of your head trying to make excuses for what's going on. And a detailed prediction of how it's going to end or how it's going to wind up. We are always calculating. And honey, because we females, damn it, we're fucking emotional beings. And we ain't going to change that. That is how we are designed. That is how we operate. That is why we birth the children. Meanwhile, the man could be literally buying his fucking groceries and so clueless to what the fuck us and our girlfriends are talking about. Y'all know it's true. Can we laugh? Because when this is all done, we all know y'all doing that. And this is where emotional regulation becomes everything to us, honey. Because emotional regulation isn't about becoming emotionless. It isn't about disconnecting. Because those, honey, those are trauma response. It's learning how to fix, learning how to feel emotions without them hijacking your life and your mind. It's about getting out of the ego of the mind and getting into the heart space, getting into that true feminine power, a flow. It is creating space between the trigger and the response. That's where healing lives, honey. Not in the reaction, in the pause. Because we've all acted out of reaction. I'm 100% guilty for that. In that pause, that sacred pause, the pause where you stop and ask yourself what is actually happening. Take that motherfucker out of the picture. This is about you, honey. Just remember that. This is about you healing and your triggers. So I need you to ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? What evidence do I have? Am I responding to the present moment or reacting to something from my past? Because here's what nobody tells you. The nervous system isn't always responding to what is happening. It often responds to what happened. And that's a massive difference. Let me give you an example, baby boo. Sometimes when you get that emotion, it can make you react. That's why I say actions speak louder than words. And when you take your emotion out and actually look at things for face value before reacting, and yeah, that is one of the, to this day, is one of the hardest things that I do, but I have to do it or I will spiral out. And it's just like any woman. You will spiral out in your mind, in your deep thoughts, or with your girlfriends, trying to make sense of this all. If I'm dating somebody and I see certain tendencies, I mean, we all have their pasts, and I wasn't 100% not perfect in my marriage. I had a lot of faults. But one thing was my ex had a lot of narcissistic traits. He had to look good in front of everybody else. And behind closed doors, he's a completely different person to myself and my son. Those are deeply inner child wounds for him that he needs to sort out in his own journey, and I wish him all the best. But there's certain things, certain patterns you see after you go through a relationship like that. And yes, we all have narcissistic tendencies, and I do as well. And even Mother Teresa, all of us will have certain narcissistic tendencies, but it's when you devalue somebody so much and going on a ride with somebody, you see them kind of physically pull away, then they put their selfish needs in front of yours, and it's always about what they want and what they need and what they want. Those are patterns. Those are patterns you're going to recognize, and you're not going to make excuses for them anymore. And this is when I talk about really differentiating what is really happening and responding. Maybe they might have ate something before you. Right away, you react and give it a second, and maybe they're going to turn around and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was so rude. Did you want some?" You have to be able to give yourself a lot of time to pause, give them an opportunity to see if they shift. Nobody's perfect, honey. So the woman who experienced abandonment is going to expect to be abandoned. The woman who experienced betrayal most of the times is anticipating somebody to betray them. The woman who experienced rejection may assume rejection before it even arrives, not because she's broken, because her nervous system learned survival. The problem isn't the strategies that protect us. And if you don't become conscious of that, you will continuously confuse patterns with truth. Now, let's talk about that because patterns are sneaking. Patterns don't introduce themselves, honey. They don't walk into your life and say, hey, hello, I'm your abandonment wound. No, they disguise themselves as certainty. Someone takes longer to text back is a pattern. He's losing interest. Someone becomes distant. It's a pattern. You're about to be abandoned. Someone disagrees with you, a pattern. You're not enough. And because those felt very familiar, we assume they are true. But familiar doesn't equal true. Let me say this again. Familiarity doesn't equal true. The sentence alone changes your life and how you look at it because many of us aren't responding to reality. We're responding to programming, years of conditioning, years of wounds, years of experience, years of survival. And then one day healing access a very uncomfortable question. What if the story isn't true? What if there's another possibility? What if your wound is talking? What if your fear is talking? What if you're seeing the past instead of the present? Now let's go deeper because I know many of you women listening are spiritual women. You're intuitive, you're empathic, you're connected, you trust. So do I, honey, because energy don't lie. Your intuition's always guiding you. And it is when you are in your most authentic heart space, not when you're in your mind. This is what I'm trying to break down for y'all. But one of the greatest lessons of my life has been learning that intuition and fear feel very fucking different. Trying not to respond to situations out of fear and my intuition, understanding the difference. Fear is loud, it is urgent. It's chaotic. It's demanding. Fear says, do something now, leave now, control now, protect now, fix now. Your intuition doesn't do that. Your intuition whispers to you, honey. It is calm. It is unknowing. It is grounded. It is steady, clear, and it feels contracted. Intuition feels expansive. Fear creates panic. Intuition creates knowing. The challenge is learning the difference. And you can only hear your intuition clearly when your nervous system is regulated. Is it going to be regulated perfectly? Fuck no, we're humans. But it's the awareness of you understanding your nervous system and how to regulate it. Otherwise, fears grabs the microphone and starts giving fucking TED Talks. Starts going off the deep end. Now let's talk about spiritual awakening because social media has sold us this fucking delusional fantasy. They make awakening look like crystals, candles, moon rituals, sage bundles, and aesthetic Instagram photos and boho clothes. And y'all, you know what? I love all that shit. And I do. I have my crystals and I absolutely love all those things. But spiritual awakening, it's not fucking cute, honey. I don't know who gives that bullshit story because when you are truly awakened to your spirit, honey, you are going to have to face your fucking own demons. Things that about yourself. You're going to have to become self-aware and learn to operate from your heart. Not out of fear, because fear is what gives you toxic boundaries, just cuts people off without giving acknowledgement. It's cold, it's ruthless. That, honey, is a survival wound. That is a trauma response. That has nothing to do with spirituality and keeping your peace. Keeping your peace is being open being vulnerable with your feelings and setting the tone. Honey, it is like telling somebody, I am here, I love you, but I'm not tolerating this anymore. And if you can handle that, come on over for some coffee. Fear is the opposite. It's like, honey, I don't like how you talk to me, and I don't have to put up with this, and I'm not talking to you anymore. That is a survival wound. That is a trauma response, honey. There's a difference. Spiritual awakening is becoming aware of the way you've been unconsciously running your life. It is seeing your own patterns, your own wounds, your own triggers, your defense, your coping mechanisms, your self sabotaging techniques. And those are all hard fucking pills to swallow. And deciding to stop letting them drive your car, which is your mind, honey. That is awakening. It's not becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious. That's why I believe emotional regulation is one of the most sacred spiritual practices there is, because every trigger becomes a fucking opportunity. Honey, I'm an alchemist. I turn bullshit into gold. So every uncomfortable feeling becomes a fucking teacher. Every relationship, good or bad, becomes a mirror. Every heartbreak becomes information, honey. It is not punishment, it is information. And when we stop seeing our triggers as enemies and start seeing them as messengers, everything changes. Now let's talk about hyper independence, because this one is fucking personal, y'all. Many women believe their hyper independence is empowerment. And it is powerful when a woman is standing in her divine feminine sovereignty and she is operating from her heart, not her ego. Because damn, that's a triumph. But most independency and empowerment is often self protection. And I lived that road and I lived that woman's life for a very long time. It's survival mode, wearing a very expensive lipstick and walking around with a designer purse. It is trauma in a power suit. It is fear dressed as strength. The feminine isn't about doing everything alone. The feminine isn't about proving you don't need anyone. The feminine is about connection, trust, presence, receiving, allowing support, staying open without abandoning herself. And I thought I knew all this shit before, but when I actually got my mere doses and I had to really look at my shadow self and really break down, honey, it was a rude awakening for me. And that requires fucking courage. I'm talking about real shit courage, y'all. Not the courage to leave a situation, the courage to stay present long enough to discover her own fucking truth. Now, here's a lesson that changed everything for me. Healing isn't when you stop getting triggered, honey, because you are always going to get triggered. And I can tell you because I've had very short bursts of dating. I can't say they were full on relationships. They maybe lasted a few weeks, a couple of months. And every time I listen to my intuition, and the moment I feel like a trigger, I really have to reflect and really have to pay attention, because consistency is essential. When somebody's trying to win you over and they think that they got you and they don't have to put as much effort into you, honey, you don't want that. You want somebody who's going to show up consistently. And when you, instead of being triggered, I look I observe and I watch the few next steps. And if the few next steps I see, because actions speak louder than words, because honey, I every woman's heard that. Oh, you're one of a kind. I can't believe how lucky I am to find you. Oh my God, you're just an incredible, like, you're going to hear everything you're going to want to hear. Oh, nobody's ever made me feel this way. I feel like I'm a teenager again. Honey, it's their actions. It is their actions that are going to speak volumes. And once you become very self aware of you learning to react as a trauma response, because, I got a short fuse, I got a short temper. One thing I can't handle is when somebody insults my intelligence or is disrespectful and can't communicate properly. You know when you know. And that's the beautiful thing. When you self-regulate, you know your intuition is telling you, honey, this person is not your person. They are not going to meet you at your level. Because this is honest God truth, honey. People can only meet us at their level. And if they don't want to grow and evolve and try to be consciously aware and become a better person, honey, and you're doing all this work, they're not going to come to that on their own. They might say that, but their actions are going to speak louder than words. And when you've done the work, you're going to pay attention and you're going to see and you know what's going to feel right and what's wrong, honey. Healing isn't when you catch yourself getting triggered. Healing is when awareness enters the fucking room, honey. Healing is when you hear the story and ask, is that true? Healing is when you pause before reacting. Healing is when you recognize the patterns before the patterns control you. Because once you see the patterns lose their power. Awareness turns unconscious reaction into conscious choices. And conscious choices create fucking freedom. So if you're listening right now and you are healing, questioning yourself, dating, navigating uncertainty, or standing at the crossroads, remember this. You don't have to abandon yourself to stay anywhere, honey. Any person, anything. You never abandon yourself. The moment you're made to feel you're questioning your value and your worth, honey, that's what you got to pay attention to. And you don't have to run to keep yourself safe because, I had my designer gold shoes and I ran all the time. But now I have to sit there and face the shit and really unpack it. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is conscious choices. The goal is awareness. The goal is learning how to trust yourself enough to sit with discomfort long enough to hear and see what is actually true. Because the woman you're becoming doesn't react from wounds. She responds from wisdom. She doesn't live from fear. She lives from awareness. She doesn't abandon herself. She comes home to herself. And that, my beautiful queens, is what healing really looks like. So, if today's episode spoke to your heart, share it with another woman who needs to learn to trust herself again. Take a screenshot, tag me on Instagram, hit like, follow, and subscribe. And tell me your biggest win or takeaway. And if you're ready to move from survival mode into embodied feminine power, visit my website and explore my coaching programs, workshops, resources designed to help you regulate your nervous system, reclaim your voice, and come home to yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode. I can get as much help out there as possible. Because every time you share this podcast, another woman realizes she is not alone. Until next time, gorgeous. Stay true to yourself, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep spilling that yoni tea and birthing your honest to God divine feminine truth. I'm Angelina, and I'll see you on the next episode. Sending you lots of love. Ciao.